Alright guys, we're back doing another video. It's been a while, but this will be an update on how I've hit 31 million plus DPS on Deadeye Power Siphon. Just a few things before we start. Like half the DMs I get are people like, why can't I face tank Shaper Slam? Or why is Cyrus so hard when I get hit by everything? Guys, this build is not for beginners, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. If you're like, if it's literally your first time playing the game or your first time playing an invasion build, this is probably not the build for you. Um, Also, like, another disclaimer, I don't make like guides. Like, I'm not a guide maker. Like, this is literally the only build I make or that I play. So my knowledge is limited to about this and about some game mechanics, and that's about it. So don't like DM me asking me why your Flicker Strike build is not sustaining frenzy charges, bro. I have no idea why, okay? Try Blood Rage or something. Anyways, I'm gonna splice in some clips about the video to see if you're interested, and if you're not, just go ahead and Alt F4 your browser, watch a different video. Cool. Alright guys, this is the part of the video where you decide whether or not it's a build that you want to play. So I'm gonna have some clips running, I'm gonna watch them alongside you, and I'll just give commentary. Hopefully there's audio. I'm not sure if there's gonna be audio. So we're just gonna do a quick map here, running to the Conqueror, and then we're gonna kill the Conqueror as well. I think I'm just rushing straight to the boss here. Yeah. So here's what a map like T15 or 14 boss looks like, and then here's what this fight looks like. Yeah, he died. Okay, and then this is another map with another Conqueror. This is like halfway through the map already, I think. I didn't want this to take too long, so I cut some of these clips up a little bit. Alright, here's a map boss. Map boss is dead. Here is this guy. I'm just gonna face tank everything he throws and just hold down Power Siphon. I actually get pretty low there by tanking that. Okay, she died faster than I could transition. Here's this guy. This guy has phases, so like we can insta-phase him there. And then we have to run around for a little bit. I actually dropped frenzy charges here, but I got him back up, so it's fine. Cool. Oh, and then here's Cyrus, last phase, awakening level 8. And I think I have another clip in here as well. Yep. Cool. And then after this clip is just a quick clip of satisfying map clear. Boom, the whole screen explodes. Cool. So hopefully that gave you some insight to how the build plays and the bossing. Next up, the actual guide and all that stuff. Stay tuned. Alright, you guys have just watched all the clips and you're still here, so that means you're interested in the build and the playstyle. So we're gonna go over some pros and cons. We'll just start with the pros, I guess. First pro is it's a fast mapper, probably like one of the fastest. You could even slot in a headhunter to just boost your map clear even more. In general, most Ranger, Deadeye, all those ascendancies are going to be fast mappers just because Tailwind and Onslaught, all these built-in movement speed mechanics. So yeah, the next one is going to be you can league start as this build, and I'm like proof of that because I've done it the past like 5 or 6 leagues or something like that, even after the nerfs. I usually level as Lightning Arrow, and I take all the projectile damage, life, evasion, elemental damage nodes, and you avoid all the wand, the crit, and the spell damage nodes until you're able to transition and use a Piscators at around like level 70. Yep. The next pro is it's a Netflix build. So what is a Netflix build? A Netflix build means it requires so little skill to map that you can have your sound off and just turn your loot filter up. And to clear a map, here if I just open up Pro real quick, you just right click. Oh. Dude, I swear, small indie company. Okay, I guess we're not going to show Poe. You just right click and it will shoot kinetic blast. You don't have to aim and it will just destroy the entire screen, and you just listen for loot drops while you have Netflix open. The next pro is it's an MTX enabler. What does that mean? That means if you have like a Herald device MTX and like a Kinetic Blast MTX, the build is way more fun to play because of the sounds and the visuals. If you don't have MTX, obviously it's not going to change anything, but it definitely feels good with MTX. Evasion based. Why is that a pro? Well, the pro about evasion builds are, you have acro, you have phase acro, wind dancer, and then you have like a lot of evasion. You're never going to get hit by anything, and the times you do get hit, you're going to get one shot, so that might feel bad, but in general, you can clear an entire map and your health bar will never drop, just from dodging and evading and that type of stuff. So it definitely feels clean. Whereas if you're playing like an energy shield build, you're constantly getting chain stunned, or your energy shield is just dropping because you're standing on burning ground and it's not going to regenerate. There's all these like kind of bad things that come with not playing evasion builds, so I just stay with evasion builds. And it's a great bosser with, parentheses, invest. You have to invest in your bossing capabilities. You're not going to run up to Uber Elder with like 5C worth of gear and kill it. You kind of do need to invest a little bit into the bossing capability. And then for the cons, it can be squishy. So that goes back to the evasion thing, right? If you're low on evasion or you get unlucky and you don't dodge something, you're probably one shot. Like a Shaper Slam, you don't dodge it, you're dead. Shaper Beam, 2 ticks of it will probably kill you. So that kind of segues into the next point. It requires game knowledge, not only for crafting your own gear, but for fight mechanics. So if you walk up to Shaper and you have no clue when he's going to slam, and you get hit by a slam, you're probably dead. So you need to know fight mechanics, which is why at the beginning of the video I said it's not for beginners, and this is kind of why. Third con is it can get expensive. Obviously this isn't like an innate con of the build, right? Because you can kind of craft your own gear and build up as you go. There isn't a huge barrier of entry, but it can definitely get expensive if you're just trying to get if you're trying to min-max. I would say it's more expensive than some other builds that are min-maxed. And the next con is Piano Flask, and then RSI. So Piano Flask means you're pretty much pressing all your flasks like this, all 5 of them or 4, like all the time, and it can be strain on your hand if you're not used to it. So that's another one. And then we have some neutral points here. We have off meta, so this isn't a pro or con, it's just kind of the build is more niche because most people play the assassin instack version. So if you feel like being different, playing an evasion build, you could be a little bit off meta. The next like kind of pro, who knows, is it's life based, which means you get to use a life flask and you get to spam that if you're low, and you don't have all these bad things that come with using energy shield. So yeah, that was the pros and cons. I'm not sure what's next, but just stay tuned for the rest of the guide. Whoa. Is this path of building? Guys, we've made it to the path of building part of the video. Everyone's favorite part. Okay, let's start with the items. And by the way, this is going to be for my iteration of the build, the 31.4 million DPS. I'm not going to go over budget options. I'm not going to go over other variations like with Feral's Fur or the Instack. Maybe that's for a different video. This is purely going to be my build that I currently have without compromise. Awesome. Okay, starting off with the wand. I made a video on how to craft a wand like this, using beast imprinting and then harvest fracturing with essence lightning damage. Mine is slightly better than that because it has T1 lightning instead of like T1.5 essence lightning. Yeah, so the reason we have spell damage on some of our gear is because we're taking this node called Wand Slinger, and note the third line here. Increases and reductions to spell damage also apply to attacks while you're wielding a wand, which allows us to get spell damage on our wand and on our shield, and have that increase our overall damage. And then we have obviously flat lightning, and then the flat cold. So we want just enough cold on our gear so that we start shattering. You want the damage profile to be around like 90% lightning and like 10% cold. You know, maybe there's some chaos in there from chaos conversion, but in general you want not too much cold to take away from your shock value, but just enough cold so that you're shattering for map clear and for Herald of Ice to chain and stuff. Cool, so that's the wand. And then we are using a Dex int based shield, and the reason it has to be Dex int based is because you need the int base to be able to get spell damage, and then you need the Dex base for evasion. So this is kind of the best of both worlds here. And again, we have the spell damage roll. We have life on here. We have light damage with extra chaos, and then we do have the socketed gems have 10% reduced mana reservation. This isn't mandatory if you want to use an enlightened gem, but I did this so I didn't have to do that. And it leaves my unreserved mana, you can see over here on the left, at about 113, and my mana cost is 31, so I can get about three casts off before I run out of mana. But in reality, we only need to get about 1 or 2 casts off because we're taking this node down here. This node is mandatory, by the way. This wasn't an accident. Like if you're looking at my tree, this is on purpose. You need to take this 1 mana leech node. The reason is we have no mana regeneration and our unreserved mana is minimal. So this will allow us, after an attack, to instantly gain back all of our mana. And this 0.4% actually turns out to be perfectly enough to sustain mana forever. Awesome. By the way, we'll go over the tree in detail after the items. I'm just gonna like alternate between the two when a point arises. Next up, we have a helmet. This Power Siphon enchant, mandatory because 2 additional projectiles is actually a more damage multiplier. Each extra projectile doing about this much average hit damage times our shock and all that. Awesome. And then I have a Warlord base. And what's cool about the Warlord base on a Dex helm is if you augment crit with Harvest, you're guaranteed to get multi or power charges. Therefore, if you do it twice, you're guaranteed to have both of these. You're guaranteed to have crit multi. There's 3 tiers, but you'll get at least one of them, and then maximum power charges. So you can craft a helm like this for like literally the cost of the base with the enchant plus the 2 aug crits. And then these resistances in life, they're actually pretty bad. You can definitely make a better one than this for actually pretty cheap. I'd say like 6-7x, depends on how much the base is. Next, I have a GG double corrupted shroud with +1 socketed gems and 46% increased damage. And the normal implicit of a shroud is like +22 mana, so literally any corruption is going to be better than that. Now, you might be thinking like, oh, isn't +1 socketed gems and then like +2 projectile gems better? No, if you run the numbers, slightly worse. So these are actually the best 2 possible corruptions. And yeah, I have 9% increased max life instead of 10%. I bought it like this, so there's not much I could do about it. Next up, our gloves. Again, I have the best possible, not the best possible, but a really, really good double enchant with +2 AoE gems. And the reason we have AoE gems is because we have KB socketed in here, and each level will increase its area of effect, thus increasing our map clear. And then we have +1 maximum frenzy charges. Obviously super useful. Frenzy charges give attack speed, so that's super helpful as well. Then we have bubonic trails. This adds 1 to 160 lightning damage if you haven't killed recently. It's only good for bossing. You could instead put a different enchant on here, or no enchant at all, not a big deal. And then like there's no rolls on here, just like 2 abyssal sockets is what you want. I'll go over the abyssals after as well, and I'll probably have a video that talks about how to buy / craft abyssals. Here's our amulet. Again, pretty bad, like T3 resistances, T4 flat lightning. What's important here is that we have damage penetrates lightning resistance and some flat lightning, and then the rest is just filling in other stats. And then we allocate Prism Weave on it. Prism Weave is super OP node. Gives us attack speed with wands, awesome. 24% wed with wands, awesome. And damage penetrates 5% elemental resistance, awesome. That node is really good. Definitely the best anointable node. A close second would be Divine Judgment over here for 50% increased elemental damage. If you, for some reason, don't want Prison Weave, you can go ahead and take Divine Judgment. That's up to you. Cool. Now we're going to move on to the first ring. So a ring like this has just flat lightning and then a resistance, and then conductivity on hit is really important because we don't have enough sockets to put a curse on hit setup, unless you want to get rid of your cast with damage taken setup, but I wouldn't recommend it. So we're going to have conductivity on hit on a ring, and then we're going to have lightning damage for power charge, lightning damage against shocked enemies, and then we're going to craft on crit chance with multi if you've shattered recently. So to make a ring like this, it's actually super easy. There's only 6 possible lightning mods that a crusade or diamond ring can roll. So if you craft on percent lightning damage, which is the one mod we don't want, and then you augment lightning 5 times, you're guaranteed to get the same mods I have, give or take the tiers, right? And then you just end up removing your craft and adding on this craft. And you can literally have the same exact ring, give or take the tiers of the mods, right? And this base costs 5C or something like that. So basically this ring costs the cost of 5 lightning augments. Pretty decent. And then this opal ring is a Shaper Elder opal with 5 T1 mods. This ring is definitely unachievable if you're not willing to spend 70 to 80x on a ring. This ring has T1 lightning damage, T1 lightning flat to spells and attacks, T1 multi, T1 life, T1 cold against chilled or frozen, and then it has crafted chance and multi. Instead of a ring like this, you could just have a ring with some resistance and life and flat lightning, maybe accuracy as well. Let me quickly touch on accuracy because you probably saw I have accuracy on my amulet. And if you're looking at my skill gems, you'll notice that like precision, for example, is only level 3. So we want to level up our precision and get just enough accuracy on like our amulet or our shield or something so that we have a 100% hit chance. If we don't have a 100% hit chance, and again I've talked about this in other videos, but if we don't have a 100% hit chance, it feels bad because say you have 98% hit chance, that means 2 out of 100 or 1 out of 50 of your attacks just will not hit. And that's not just one projectile, that is the entire, say you're shooting Power Siphon and it has 20 projectiles or whatever. If you end up getting unlucky and you hit that 1 out of 50, that entire burst will miss. Or, for example, your entire kinetic blast will just miss, won't hit. So getting 100% not only is a huge like sheet DPS increase, but it's also like a quality of life increase as well. So you definitely want to have 100% hit chance. And you can do that by leveling up your precision just enough so that you have 100%. You see, if it was level 2, I'd have 99, right? And just by hitting it to level 3, I have 100. And that ends up being a really big, from 30.8 to 31.4. So a lot. Cool. Now we'll go on to the belt. Again, you could slot in a headhunter if you want insane map clear, but I just have like a really high life resistant wed belt here. T1 life, T1% max, T2 fire, T2 cold, T1 lightning, and then T1 wed. And then I have fertile catalysts on here to increase the life even more. And you can see our effective life is around like 5291, about 5300. So really not too bad. And then now for flask, this is my bossing flask setup. We're going to take bubbling, seething, or panicked. Up to you, it's all preference. Divine life flask of staunching. Staunching is really important here. I have people who GM me on Discord. Why am I dying to bleeds when I have a corrupted blood gem? Corrupted blood and bleed are not the same. They act the same, but they are not the same. You still need a staunching life flask. Then I have a cinder swallow flask. This is to get onslaught while bossing. Onslaught, attack speed, movement speed, all that good stuff. And then you want the crit chance affix on here, the unveiled craft, and that will give you, should get you crit chance capped. And then the second line here, the blue tag, enemies ignited by your flask take 10% increased damage. we need to ignite enemies to take effect of this. So we have fire damage. Let me find. You see on this whispering globe, I just have one fire damage roll, 9 to 17 to attacks, just so that we can ignite. If we look at our calcs here, and we see that our chance to ignite is 100%. What that allows us to do is tick this enemy as ignited, which turns out to be a lot of damage because our Cinder Swallow is a percent multiplier. So another thing to note, you do not want a high fire damage roll. I purposely got the lowest fire damage that I could reasonably get. The reason is you don't want to take away from your shock effect. If your attacks are doing more fire damage, that's going to equate to doing less lightning damage, which is less shock, which is less damage. We want just enough to ignite 100% of the time to fully utilize our Cinder Swallow. Next, we have a Dying Sun, self-explanatory, +2 projectiles, feels good. Bottle of Faith, this will guaranteed get you crit chance capped. It also has a more multiplier, just like our Cinder Swallow, if enemies are on the consecrated ground. Also gives you some life regen, some flat damage. This flask is about 4 million DPS, as you can see. Really, really useful. And then we have an Aziri's Promise. The elemental damage is extra chaos. That's like decent damage, but we actually just want the chaos resistance more than anything. But the leech helps as well, obviously. And then next, excuse me, we have a Watcher's Eye. These are like the best possible enchants. That doesn't cost you 300x. This costs like maybe 30x. It's attack speed, precision, and Wrath Lightning Pen. This jewel is really, really big for damage. But if you had to get rid of one of the mods, I would say get rid of the precision and just keep the lightning pen. Nice. Okay, let's go over just some abyssal jewels. You need a corrupted blood cannot be inflicted on you jewel if you're going to be farming Cyrus. If not, don't worry about it. And then you're going to need % chance to gain onslaught for 4 seconds on kill. The reason you want this is when we're not bossing, we're just going to be using like a Quicksilver Flask instead of this Cinder Swallow. So we actually won't have onslaught uptime because we're not a raider, we're a Deadeye. So we'll need one jewel with onslaught. The other stats don't matter, just as long as you have corrupted blood on it. And then another jewel like this, again, we're just going to be stacking flat lightning to attacks, to wand attacks, and cold damage, just enough to start shattering. And then this one, we have the fire damage to ignite, we have flat life, wand attacks, and then here we have lightning damage, we have some multi, and then wand attacks as well. This jewel happens to be really good with a double synthesis implicit with crit multi and flat ele. Not flat ele, percent ele damage. And then this one, again, flat lightning, multi and life. The reason we're using a Murderous Eye jewel here is to benefit from our bubonic trails, which is 10%, another increased multiplier for each abyss jewel affecting you. And I've talked about this in my other guide back when I had 20 million DPS. Why aren't we using all 3 types? Why aren't we using Hypnotic, Murderous, and Searching? Well, Hypnotic has literally 0 stats that we can use, and it turns out the 10% doesn't make up for just having flat damage on one of our jewels. So we're only opting for 2 different types, a Murderous and a Searching. But even then, we're only using 1 Murderous, right? And you can get multi, flat attacks, and life. And then the regen, I'm not even sure if there's anything else you could get. Maybe like cold damage or something. And then here we have a Grim Call. Again, cold, lightning, life. So that's pretty much all the gear. We could talk about gem links. Let me actually go to my my poeninja so I can talk about gem links here. As you can see, I'm also level 100. I just want to talk about gem links here because you can actually see it more clearly. Whoops, okay. So in our body armor, we're using a shroud, so we get this free 6 link, right? It's a level 20 ele pen. And then we're going to slot in inspiration, added lightning, barrage, wed, and then vol power siphon. Doesn't have to be vol power siphon, but it's the only vol skill we're using, so it doesn't hurt to just make it vol. This allows us to use it like on a legion or a strongbox or a breach. You just press it and it clears the entire screen. And then this is our clear setup. We have a kinetic blast, inspiration, wed, GMP with the free 5 link from Thunderfist. So you can kind of see why this build is good to League Start as, because we have a Shroud and Thunder Fist, which is just free links that we don't have to worry about. And then we have a cast when damage taken setup with a Steel Skin. You can only level this up until you run out of strength, because we're pretty low on strength. So level 11 ends up being fine. And then we have a dash with a second wind. And what's cool about second wind is it kind of helps both our Steel Skin and our dash. So you can see that supported skills have increased cooldown recovery speed per quality. So what that allows it to do is get our Steel Skin off cooldown faster and our dash off cooldown faster. And it gives +1 charge to our dash. And then in our weapon, we have Wave of Conviction with Spellslinger. So Wave of Conviction applies exposure for the highest elemental damage that you do. So obviously for us it's lightning, which exposure is going to reduce the amount of lightning resistance that enemies have. You could turn this off for mapping. If you run out of mana or something like that, you can just turn this off because you're rarely going to be hitting mobs with it. It's mostly for bossing. And then we have a level 1 Frenzy to gain Frenzy charges for bossing as well. So basically our whole main hand weapon is just a bossing setup with Frenzy and Spellslinger. And then our offhands, we're going to put the things that reserve the most mana because our shield has 10% reduced reservation. We're going to put Wrath in there, quality doesn't matter, and we're going to put Herald of Ice, and then our low level precision as well. And then these don't need to be linked, they just happen to be linked. And then in our boots, we only have 2 sockets to work with because of the 2 abyssal sockets. We're going to put in a Blood Rage. This gives us attack speed and frenzy charge generation. And they're putting in an Ice Golem, which gives us accuracy and some crit chance. So those are all the gem links, and we literally use every single socket. If you had to use Enlighten, I would drop Frenzy, put an Enlighten in here, and you should be all good. Nice. Now, I guess I could have looked at the gear here. It would have been prettier to look at. Here's my mapping setup, since it snapshotted my mapping flask. I use an Alchemist Quicksilver Flask of Adrenaline in place of a Bottle of Faith. And then I use an Experimenter's Diamond Flask of Heat. The Experimenter's doesn't matter, but you can just get whatever you want. Probably Surgeon's is good too. And this replaces your the Cinder Swallow. Cool. Now let's talk about the configuration and how I'm at 31.38 million DPS. There's nothing cheesy going on with this POB. This is legit. And as you can see by the Cyrus clips, like, this damage is practical. So we have max power charges all the time. This is from not only from Elder Power, which gives us power charge on kill, but also just a passive effect of Power Siphon. I'm not sure if it will show it here. Gain a power charge when projectile hits a rare unique enemy. 1 projectile hits. So if we're shooting 20 projectiles, we're getting all of our power charges guaranteed each time. Now, let's look at the rest. We have max frenzy charges. This is from Blood Rage while mapping or from using frenzy while bossing. We have max inspiration charges. This is just from using the skill. And then we have onslaught from our Cinder Swallow or from our jewel while mapping. We have tailwind because we are a Deadeye and we just get free tailwind no matter what. If you've used the skill recently, you have tailwind. So all the time we have tailwind. Do we have a flask active? Yes. Are we consecrated ground? Yes, because of our bottle of faith. Have we crit recently? We have 100% crit, so I sure hope we've crit recently. Have you killed recently? Let's just say no, because we're doing a boss. Have you shocked an enemy recently? We shock with every attack because we have a 100% shock chance. Chance to shock 100%. So yes, we have shocked an enemy recently. Have you used a skill recently? This is for our tailwind. So our attack rate is around 3.38, and if you look at tailwind, it recently refers to the past 4 seconds. So basically, how many attacks do we get off in 4 seconds? Theoretically, it would be 4 times 3.38, which is around 13 attacks, right? I just went way low and took about 30% of that number and said, okay, reasonably, I would probably use about 4 skills. Keep in mind your dash, your frenzy, your KB, and your power siphon are all skills. So like, realistically, you're going to have maybe like 10 skills used, and then you're at 33. But just because I know people are going to say like, oh, you're cheesing your POB. No, we're going to put 4, which is lower than what it would actually be. Wave of Conviction exposure type, lightning damage, because if you look at our calcs, it is by far our highest damage dealt right here. So we are definitely exposing lightning. Next, is our crit chance lucky? No, because we're not using a diamond flask on our bossing setup. How many times has your projectile chained? 0. This is because we have ricochet, which means we do 10% more damage for each remaining chain, and it gives us +1 chain, so that's a 10% more damage multiplier. Projectile travel distance, I mean, 0 up to 10 for our point blank, and it's pretty forgiving. Like, you can be within a decent margin and still get the full benefit here. Going down, is the enemy ignited? Yes, we saw that we have 100% ignite, we have 100% chill as well, and the enemy's shocked. Now, people love to argue with me on how much I shock for, so we're gonna search up a shock calculator, and if you go to the shock wiki as well, you can do the math yourself. This spreadsheet does it for you, but if you really want to, you can come down here and do this equation here. Good luck, have fun. If not, we'll put in our increased effective shock. As you can see up here in the tree, we're going the static blows cluster, which gives us shock effect, which means we end up having 60% shock effect. Okay, we plug in 60% shock effect, and then how much are we hitting for before we shock? So before we shock, we're hitting for about 380, right? So if we scroll down here and we go to about 380, it's in this range, right? 48 to 49. If anything, we're at 49% shock chance. But just to be safe, to make sure I don't get flamed, we'll go down to 48%. There you go. I hope you're happy. Next, is the enemy intimidated? No. Is the enemy on consecrated ground? Yes, because of our Bottle of Faith. Cyrus, Awakener 8. Cool. So this is all legit. Nothing cheesy going on here. If there is, let me know. I'm sure it was a mistake on my part. But 31.38 million DPS. Again, for example, say we used 10 skills recently, which is pretty reasonable, and we had 49% chance, we could be up to 33 mil. But again, let's err on the side of safety here. Now, the tree. The tree's going to look slightly different. If you've been following my build and you've been following my tree, I'm now level 100, so the tree's a little different. What are some key things that have changed? This node right here, got rid of it. This I initially had so that I would be elemental resistance capped. I don't need it anymore, so I've gotten rid of it. Next thing, I took these two nodes on the bottom previously, but I have enough lightning damage now where I have 100% shock chance, so I don't need these anymore. I also have 100% ignite chance, so I don't need these anymore, so I went for these, which is 4% wed net increase. What else have I changed? I got rid of Heart of Oak. I got rid of these two Heart of Oak points so that I could come over here and get Cruel Preparation with my level 100 point. So basically, I didn't have those, got rid of Heart of Oak, and hit level 100, so I now had 3 points to spend. This ends up being more life. Also, it gives me elemental resistance so that I was able to drop this node here. What else have I changed? I used to have this spell damage node here. It gives almost 700,000 DPS, so it's a really good node. But I ended up dropping it and rearranging part of my tree so that I could get Prodigal Perfection, which gives spell damage based on our total mana. So this ends up giving about 34%, and this is 1,000,000 DPS, and this node leading up to it gives about 300,000. So in total, 1.2 mil instead of this 700 mil for these 2 points. Again, you could easily drop those, pick that up, and spec something else with your free point. Or like, for example, you could drop these, pick that up, drop all of this, and now you have a lot of points. You can get Heart of Oak and another Frenzy Charge. So your life will go down a little bit, but your damage goes up a lot. So those are all possibilities. Next thing I did is I spec'd into Static Blows. This is to get my shock chance higher. We are not using Elemental Focus, which means we are relying on our shock to multiply our damage. Hence, investing 3 points into shock effect. Also some shock effect here. So those are the changes I've done to the tree. If you've been following, in general, here's the tree. If you want to follow it, there's my ascendancy nodes as well. Wind Dancer is optional. I prefer it, but you don't need it. You could go for something like an extra frenzy charge or whatever. Awesome, so that is the tree. We've talked about items, talked about skills as well. We're going to cut into the next part, whatever the next part is. Alright guys, the guide is over. Links in the description for the POB. Also, my Discord might be in there. You could DM me your POB, I could take a look. I'm thinking about doing a video where I review POBs and give tips and advice. It will help other people, it will help you. I'm probably going to do a video on crafting abyss jewels and or buying abyss jewels. So look out for those. Other than that, if you made it this far, you're a trooper. I'm proud of you. And like I said at the beginning, I'm not like a guide maker. I'm not like a YouTuber. So I really don't care if you subscribe, like at all. So have a good day, bros.